The manuscript pages scattered across our kitchen floor like autumn leaves, each one torn and mutilated beyond repair. 6 months of work, destroyed in minutes. I stood there, frozen, as Gregory's words echoed through our home. Your place is in the kitchen, Ingrid, not chasing silly dreams. My hands trembled as I knelt to gather the shredded remains of my novel. The words I'd carefully crafted were now just fragments, much like my marriage, I supposed. After 10 years together, I thought I knew my husband. Turns out I didn't know him at all. You went through my laptop? My voice cracked. You printed it just to destroy it? Gregory leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, wearing that smug expression I'd grown to hate. Someone had to knock some sense into you. What publisher would want this anyway? You're embarrassing yourself. I clutched the torn pages to my chest, remembering the late nights I'd spent writing while he slept, the early mornings before my job at the library, the weekends when I could have been cleaning or cooking, all the things he thought I should be doing instead. You had no right, I whispered, then louder. You had no right. I had every right. I'm your husband. Look at this place. Dishes in the sink, laundry piling up. You're neglecting your responsibilities for this hobby. The word hobby hit me like a slap. I'd been working on this story since I was a teenager, refining it, perfecting it. Only Serenity, my best friend, knew how much it meant to me. She'd been begging me to show it to publishers for months. It's not a hobby, I said, rising to my feet. It's who I am. Gregory laughed, that condescending chuckle that made my skin crawl. Who you are? You're my wife. That's who you are. Something snapped inside me. Maybe it was the way he said my wife like I was his property. Maybe it was seeing my dreams scattered across the floor. Or maybe it was just 10 years of suppressed anger finally breaking free. I'm calling Serenity, I said, reaching for my phone. Oh, perfect. Run to your little friend. That's what you women do, isn't it? Complain about your husbands. I dialed Serenity's number, hands shaking. She answered on the second ring. Remember that writing club idea you mentioned? I asked, watching Gregory's face darken. Let's do it. Tonight. Your place. Really? Serenity's excitement was palpable. Oh my God, yes. I'll post it online right now. We could meet at 7. Perfect. I ended the call and faced my husband. You think my place is in the kitchen? Let's test that theory together. What are you talking about? I'm starting a writing club, tonight, and you can't stop me. Gregory's face reddened. You're not going anywhere. You have responsibilities here. I walked to the kitchen sink and picked up a plate, studying it carefully before letting it slip from my fingers. It shattered on the floor, the sound oddly satisfying. Oops, I said. Guess I'll have to clean that up later, after my meeting. You've lost your mind, Gregory sputtered. No, I replied, grabbing my laptop and car keys. I've finally found it. As I headed for the door, Gregory called out, If you leave now, don't bother coming back tonight. I turned to face him one last time. Don't worry, I won't. I'll be staying at Serenity's. And Gregory? I saved backups of my manuscript in the cloud. You might have destroyed the papers, but you can't destroy my words. The look of shock on his face was worth everything. As I drove to Serenity's house, my hands stopped shaking. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. My phone buzzed with a text from Serenity. 3 women already responded to the post. This is happening. I smiled, thinking of Gregory alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the mess he'd made, torn pages and broken china, symbols of our broken marriage. He thought he was teaching me a lesson, showing me my place. Instead, he'd given me exactly what I needed, the push to finally break free. The writing club wasn't just about writing anymore. It was about rebellion, about finding my voice, about showing Gregory and every other person who'd ever tried to silence a woman that our stories deserved to be told. I parked outside Serenity's house, took a deep breath, and texted her, I'm here. Let's make history. Serenity's living room buzzed with nervous energy as 5 women settled onto couches and chairs. The scent of coffee mingled with anxiety and hope. I hadn't expected anyone besides Serenity to show up, but here they were, strangers united by words and determination. "I'm Natasha," said a young woman with bright purple hair, hugging a worn notebook to her chest. "I saw your post and, well, my boyfriend says writing is a waste of time, but I can't stop. I just can't." "You shouldn't stop," I replied, my voice stronger than I felt. "None of us should." Serenity emerged from the kitchen with a tray of mugs. "Ladies, grab your coffee and let's get started. Ingrid, want to tell everyone why we're here?" I stood, my hands clasped tightly together. "My husband destroyed my manuscript today." Gasps filled the room. "He printed it out just to shred it, to teach me my place is in the kitchen. What a jackass," muttered a woman in her 50s, who'd introduced herself as Ruth. "But here's the thing," I continued. "He actually taught me something else entirely. We're not alone. There are women everywhere being told to be quiet, to stick to appropriate activities, to give up their dreams. This club isn't just about writing, it's about refusing to be silenced." My phone buzzed. Jeremy, my brother. I ignored it. "What are you writing?" asked Maria, a college student with tired eyes and endless enthusiasm. "A novel about—" My phone buzzed again. "Sorry, let me just—" I checked the message. "Jeremy. Greg called. He's furious. Says you're having some kind of breakdown. What's going on?" I typed back quickly. "Not a breakdown, an awakening. Call you later." "Sorry," I said to the group. My brother. Where was I? My novel's about a woman who discovers she can hear other people's thoughts, but only when they're lying. It starts when she realizes her husband's been living a double life. Natasha leaned forward, eyes wide. "Exactly," I smiled. "But it's really about truth, and how we often ignore it even when it's right in front of us. Like ignoring red flags in relationships." Ruth nodded knowingly. "Been there, done that, got the divorce papers." Laughter rippled through the room, breaking the tension. For the next 2 hours, we shared stories, snippets of writing, and dreams we'd been too afraid to voice. Natasha read a poem that brought tears to our eyes. Maria shared a chapter from her fantasy novel. Even Ruth, who claimed she only wrote grocery lists, revealed she'd been secretly working on a memoir. My phone kept buzzing. Jeremy again. "Greg's threatening to come to Serenity's. Be careful." "Ladies," I announced, "my husband might make an appearance. Anyone who wants to leave." "We're not going anywhere," Serenity interrupted. "Let him come. He'll have to get through all of us." "And my pepper spray," added Ruth, patting her purse. The doorbell rang. We all froze. "I'll get it," Serenity said, but I stopped her. "No, I will." I opened the door to find not Gregory, but Cole, my childhood friend who now worked in publishing. "Jeremy called me," he said, looking concerned. "Said you might need backup." Relief flooded through me. "Cole, come in, meet everyone." As Cole entered, I noticed how the other women straightened up, suddenly very interested in this unexpected male ally. He surveyed the room, taking in the notebooks, laptops, and coffee mugs. "So this is the revolution, huh?" He grinned. "Need a friendly publisher in your corner." "You're serious?" I asked. "Dead serious. I've been wanting to launch a new imprint focusing on women's voices. This could be perfect timing." Serenity squealed. "Did everyone hear that? We have a publisher." "A potential publisher," Cole corrected, but he was smiling. "Let's see what you've all got." The energy in the room shifted from defensive to electric. Women who, moments ago, were sharing their stories of being silenced were now practically bouncing with possibility. My phone buzzed one final time. Gregory. "This ends now. I'm coming over." I showed the message to Cole, who immediately stood up. "Ladies, how about we move this meeting to my office? It's just down the street, and I happen to know a great pizza place that delivers." As we gathered our things, I caught Serenity's eye. She nodded, understanding passing between us. This wasn't just about escaping Gregory anymore. This was about something bigger. "Text your husband back," Cole suggested as we left. "Tell him the kitchen's all his." I did better than that. I sent Gregory a photo of our group walking into Cole's publishing office with the caption, "You're right, I found my place." Then I turned off my phone and followed my new family of writers into the future I'd always dreamed of but never dared to claim. Until now. 3 weeks after our first meeting, I could barely recognize the writing club. What started as 5 women in Serenity's living room had exploded into 25 regular members, meeting twice weekly in Cole's office building. The energy was intoxicating. "Have you seen this?" Natasha burst through the door, waving her phone. "We're trending locally on social media. Laura Women Write Back is everywhere." I looked up from my laptop where I'd been working on my revised manuscript. The new version was darker, fiercer, fueled by recent events. "That's amazing. How did—" "Oh my God, Ingrid," Maria interrupted, rushing in. "Victoria Davis just followed our group online. The Victoria Davis." My heart skipped. Victoria Davis was practically royalty in the publishing world, known for her raw, honest novels about women's experiences. Before I could process this, my phone rang. It was Marley, Gregory's sister. "Ingrid, we need to talk. About Gregory." I stepped into the hallway. "Is he okay?" "He's struggling. Look, there's something you should know about his childhood. Can we meet?" 20 minutes later, I sat across from Marley at a cafe down the street. She looked nervous, stirring her coffee endlessly. "Gregory never told you about our mother, did he?" I shook my head. "She was a writer too, had real talent. Our father—" Marley's voice cracked. "He burned her manuscripts, all of them. Said the same things Gregory said to you. That her place was in the kitchen, taking care of the family. She never wrote another word. Just faded away." The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. "That's why he became his father, Ingrid. The thing he swore he'd never do." Marley reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "I'm not defending him. What he did was wrong, but maybe understanding why." My phone buzzed with a message from Cole. "Victoria Davis wants to read your manuscript. This is not a drill." "I have to go," I told Marley, standing up. "But thank you for telling me." Back at the office, the excitement was palpable. Serenity practically tackled me at the door. "Victoria Davis! Ingrid, this is huge." "It gets better," Cole said, emerging from his office. "She's interested in doing a workshop with the whole group. Says she's impressed by what we're building here." Natasha squealed, hugging her notebook. "I can't believe this is real." "Neither can some other people," Ruth said grimly, showing us her phone. On the screen was a local community forum where someone, clearly Gregory, had posted a long rant about bitter women destroying families with their selfish ambitions. "The comments are amazing, though," Ruth continued, scrolling. "Everyone's defending us, sharing their own stories. He's getting destroyed." I should have felt vindicated, but Marley's words echoed in my head. Gregory, becoming the very thing he hated most. History repeating itself. "Ingrid?" Cole touched my arm. "You okay?" "Just thinking about—" The door burst open. Gregory stood there, disheveled, eyes wild. "So this is where you've been hiding." The room went silent. 25 women stared him down, while Cole stepped protectively in front of me. "I'm not hiding, Gregory. I'm writing. And succeeding. You're ruining everything," he spat, "just like she did." "Your mother didn't ruin anything," I said softly. "Your father did, and now you're doing the same thing." He staggered back as if I'd struck him. "Marley told you?" "She did, and I'm sorry for what happened to your mother. But I'm not her. These women aren't her. We're not going to fade away." "Victoria Davis is reading Ingrid's manuscript," Natasha announced proudly. "Do you even know who that is?" Gregory's face went pale. "Victoria Davis? The one Mom used to—" "Read constantly," I finished. "Yes, that Victoria Davis." Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or memory. Without another word, he turned and left, the door closing quietly behind him. Well, that was anticlimactic. Ruth muttered. No, I said, watching through the window as Gregory walked away. That was the beginning of something. My phone buzzed again. A message from Victoria Davis herself. Your story speaks to me. Let's talk about getting it published. And about what you're building there. I think it's time for women's voices to be heard. I showed the message to the group. The cheers that erupted were probably heard across the building. But beneath the celebration, I felt a strange mix of triumph and sadness. Gregory had tried to silence me, just as his father had silenced his mother. But in doing so, he'd given all of us our voices back. And we were just getting started. The local newspaper headline read, Women's Writing Club Sparks Cultural Revolution in Small Town. I stared at my photo beneath it, surrounded by the other members, all of us looking fierce and determined. The article had come out this morning, and my phone hadn't stopped ringing since. This is incredible, Victoria said over our video call, her elegant home office visible in the background. Your manuscript perfectly captures the zeitgeist of what's happening there, but I think we can push it further, make it more raw, more real. How so? Draw from what's happening right now. The club, the resistance, She paused, checking something off screen. Hold on, you're trending again. My other line beeped. Gregory, I should take this, I told Victoria. Can we continue later? Of course, and Ingrid, you're doing important work. Don't let anyone stop you. I switched calls. Hello? I saw the newspaper, Gregory said. His voice sounded strange, strained. You look different. I am different. You're never home anymore. The neighbors are talking. Let them talk. I watched through my office window as more women arrived for today's meeting. I'm busy building something important, more important than our marriage. The question hung there, heavy with implications. Before I could answer, I heard voices outside my door. You can't go in there, Serenity's voice alarmed. Watch me, a male voice responded. I opened my door to find Thomas, one of Gregory's work friends, trying to push past Serenity. Your husband's worried sick, Thomas announced. This has gone far enough. Get out, I said, my voice steady. Now. Or what? You're right about me. No, Ruth said, appearing behind him with her phone raised. But this video of you harassing women in a professional office might interest your employer. Thomas backed away, face reddening. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Cole said, stepping out of the elevator. I've already called security. They're on their way up. After Thomas left, Cole pulled me aside. Gregory's getting desperate. His friends at work are freezing him out because of that forum post. He's blaming you. I heard that too, Marley said, joining us. He's drinking more, showing up late to work. Dad's been calling him, making everything worse. I sank into my chair, the weight of it all pressing down. I never wanted... Don't, Serenity interrupted. Don't you dare feel guilty. You're changing lives here. As if to prove her point, Natasha burst in, tears streaming down her face. My poem got accepted. That literary magazine we submitted to. They want to publish it. The room erupted in cheers. More women poured in, drawn by the commotion. Someone brought champagne. Even Cole joined in, proposing a toast to women who refuse to be silenced. Through it all, I heard snippets of conversation from outside my office. Did you see Gregory at the bar last night? Completely losing it. Calm as a witch. I stepped out for air, only to overhear Gregory's voice from around the corner. We have to shut them down, he was saying. Find something, anything. Building codes, noise complaints, whatever it takes. You sure about this? Another male voice. It could backfire. I don't care. She's destroyed everything else. I won't let her take my dignity too. I pulled out my phone, started recording. The lease agreement, Gregory continued. There must be something in there we can use. Get that friend of yours in the city planning office to look into it. I sent the recording to Cole, then stepped around the corner. Gregory and his friend jumped. Really, I said. This is what you've become? Ingrid, Save it. I recorded everything. Try anything. and it goes public. You think people are talking now? Just wait. His friend slipped away, leaving us alone in the hallway. Why are you doing this to me? Gregory asked, his voice breaking. I'm not doing anything to you. You're doing it to yourself, just like your father did. Don't talk about my father. Why not? You're following his playbook perfectly. But here's the difference. I'm not your mother. And these women? I gestured toward my office, where laughter and celebration could still be heard. They're not going to fade away either. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Gregory, Victoria Davis is coming next week to do a workshop. Your mother's favorite author. Funny how life works, isn't it? I walked away, leaving him standing there, a shadow of the man I'd married. In my office, Natasha was reading her poem aloud to thunderous applause, while Cole discussed publication strategies with a group of eager writers. This was what power felt like. Not the power to destroy, like Gregory wanted, but the power to create, to inspire, to change lives. My phone buzzed with a message from Victoria. Just booked my flight, ready to make history. I looked around at my growing family of writers and replied, We already are. You can't keep avoiding me forever. Gregory's voice boomed through Cole's office building lobby. Security moved toward him, but I held up my hand. Let me handle this. I walked down to meet him, aware of the women watching from above. What do you want? I want my wife back. His tie was loose, shirt wrinkled. I want my life back. Your wife? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The one you tried to silence, the one whose dreams you destroyed. I made a mistake, okay? Is that what you want to hear? Before I could respond, Victoria Davis strode through the front door, her presence commanding immediate attention. She took in the scene with practiced ease. Ingrid? Is everything all right? Gregory's eyes widened with recognition. You're her. The one my mother used to... Victoria Davis, she said coolly. And you must be the husband I've heard so much about. Security stepped closer, but Victoria waved them off. Actually, this is perfect timing. I've just finished reading your wife's manuscript. Would you like to know what I think? Gregory stood frozen as Victoria pulled out a manuscript from her bag. My manuscript, covered in notes and sticky tabs. It's brilliant, she said. Raw, honest, powerful. The kind of story that changes lives. She turned to me. We're offering a 6-figure advance. Cole has the paperwork ready. The lobby spun around me. 6 figures? What? Gregory stumbled backward. That's impossible. Oh, it's very possible, Victoria smiled. In fact, we've already had interest from film producers. Your wife's story resonates with people, especially women who've been told to stay in their place. Upstairs, someone had opened the windows. I could hear Natasha leading a writing workshop, her voice carrying down. Write what scares you. Write what they tried to silence. You're lying, Gregory said. This is some kind of trick. Victoria pulled out her phone, showed him the screen. Here's the contract, and here's the advance amount. Would you like to count the zeros? Gregory's face went pale. It was more money than he made in 2 years. The irony, Victoria continued, is that none of this would have happened if you hadn't destroyed her first manuscript. Sometimes trying to silence someone gives them an even louder voice. Serenity appeared at my side, holding an envelope. Perfect timing. This just came for you, Ingrid. I opened it, hands shaking. Inside was a check, the first royalty payment from the literary magazine that had published our group's anthology. Show him, Serenity whispered. I held out the check. Gregory stared at it, then at me, then at Victoria. All this time, he said quietly, you were actually... Actually what? I stepped closer. Talented? Capable? Worth something beyond cooking your meals and cleaning your house? I never meant to become your father, but you did. And now look, you're losing everything, just like he did. But I'm not losing anything. I'm gaining a whole world. As if on cue, the elevator opened and our writing group members poured out, surrounding me in a protective circle. Ruth, Natasha, Maria, and dozens more. Women who'd found their voices, their strength, their community. "Mr. Wallace," Cole called from the stairwell. "I believe you're trespassing. Should I call the police, or will you leave on your own?" Gregory looked at the crowd of women, at Victoria's stern face, at the contract in her hands. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time. "You really did it," he whispered. "You really became something." "No," I corrected him. "I always was something. You just never saw it." He turned and walked out, shoulders slumped, leaving behind the ghost of the man who'd once tried to control me. Victoria touched my arm. "Ready to sign that contract?" "Actually," I said, looking at my writing family, "we should celebrate first. This isn't just my victory. It belongs to all of us." "Perfect timing for this, then." Cole emerged from his office with a newspaper. "Look who made the front page again." The headline read, "Local Women's Writing Movement Sparks National Attention, Hollywood Calling," Natasha squealed. Maria burst into tears. Ruth pulled out a bottle of champagne from her ever-present bag. To Ingrid, Serenity raised her glass, "who showed us that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best thing you'll ever do." "No," I corrected her, looking at all the faces around me, strong, determined, unsilenced. "To us, to every woman who's ever been told to be quiet, to stay in her place, to give up her dreams. This is just the beginning." Victoria raised her glass. "To the power of words." "To the power of words," everyone echoed. Outside, the sun was setting on another day in our revolution. And somewhere out there, Gregory was learning what happened when you tried to silence a woman's voice. It came back louder, stronger, and with an army behind it. "The final draft is done," I announced, hitting the send button on my email to Victoria. The office erupted in cheers, but was quickly interrupted by Marley bursting through the door. "You need to see this," she said, thrusting her phone at me. On the screen was a social media post from Gregory. "My wife's success is built on lies. The truth comes out tomorrow." "What truth?" Serenity demanded. "What is he talking about?" "He's desperate," Cole said, reading over my shoulder. "The bank's foreclosing on your house. He lost his job last week." "What?" I hadn't known about either. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because of this," Marley pulled up another post, this one from Gregory's father. "Time to show these uppity women what happens when they step out of line." Ruth snorted. "What is this, 1950? "No," Victoria said from the doorway, having arrived early for our meeting. "This is fear. Men like them, they're terrified of losing control." My phone rang. "Jeremy." "Sis, you need to know something. Greg's been meeting with Dad's old lawyer friends. They're planning something." Before I could respond, Natasha rushed in, waving a tablet. "They're saying we plagiarized. Greg's friends are posting all over social media that we stole our stories from other writers." "That's ridiculous," Cole scoffed. "We have documentation for everything. Timestamps, drafts, witnesses." "Doesn't matter," Victoria said grimly. "The accusation alone can cause damage." "Trust me, I've seen this before." "Look at the comments, though," Maria pointed out. "Nobody's buying it. They're calling him out for trying to discredit successful women." My phone buzzed again, a text from Gregory. "Last chance to shut it down voluntarily before things get ugly." "He's bluffing," Cole said, reading the message. "He has nothing." "Actually," Marley interrupted, "he might have something. Remember those writing exercises we did? The ones where we borrowed scenarios from news stories?" My stomach dropped. "He's going to twist that, isn't he?" "Already is," Ruth showed us another post. "Claims we're stealing real people's trauma for profit." "That's not," I started, but Victoria cut me off. "Get me your notes from those sessions, now, every single one." The room exploded into action. Women pulled out notebooks, laptops, phones, anything containing evidence of our creative process. Victoria and Cole huddled in the corner, making calls. "Ingrid," Serenity touched my arm. "There's something else you should know. I overheard Gregory at the bar last night. He found your mother-in-law." The room went silent. "What?" "She's alive. living in Arizona. He's trying to get her to speak out against us. I sat down hard. After all these years, why would she? She won't, Marley said firmly. I already called her. Want to know what she said? Everyone leaned in. She said, "Tell those women to burn it all down." A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me, slightly hysterical. Really? Really. And there's more. Marley pulled out her phone, played a voice message. "This is Margaret Wallace. I've been following your writing group story. Everything they're saying about you is what they said about me 30 years ago. Don't let them win. I'm sending you something that might help." "What did she send?" Natasha asked. Marley smiled. "Her manuscripts. The ones everyone thought were destroyed. She kept copies, hidden them all these years." Victoria's eyes lit up. "Now that's a story." "Better than that," Cole added. "It's evidence, proof of a pattern. Greg's father did exactly what Greg's trying to do now." My phone buzzed again. "Gregory, check your email. Last warning." I opened the email. Attached was a document filled with accusations, threats, supposed evidence of plagiarism. But there, in the metadata, was our salvation. "Cole," I called. "Look at this. He used his company email to draft these threats. The company he just got fired from." Cole grinned. "The company whose harassment policies I helped write? That company? The very same. Forward it to me, now." As Cole made calls, Victoria gathered everyone around. "Ladies, what's happening here isn't new. Men have been trying to silence women's voices forever. But times have changed. We have platforms now. We have proof. We have each other. And we have this." Marley held up a USB drive. "Mum's stories. 30 years of silenced words, ready to be heard." I stood up, facing my writing family. Gregory thought he could shame us into silence. His father thought he could burn away his wife's voice. But they forgot something important. "What's that?" Maria asked. "Paper burns. But stories are fireproof. And we've got one hell of a story to tell." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Shall we tell it?" "Oh yes," I said, watching Cole end his call with a triumphant smile. "Let's make it loud." The bookstore was packed for my first public reading. Standing at the podium, I could see Gregory in the back, his father beside him. They hadn't expected this many people, hundreds of women, men, and young writers, all here to listen. "Read the part about the burning," someone called out. I opened my novel to the marked page, but Victoria stepped up first. "Before Ingrid reads, I'd like to introduce someone special. Margaret." A woman stood up from the front row. Gregory's father stumbled backward, face draining of color. Margaret, his ex-wife, Gregory's mother, walked to the podium, head held high. "Hello, Robert," she said into the microphone. "It's been 30 years since you burned my stories. Would you like to hear one now?" The crowd erupted in cheers. Gregory started pushing through the crowd, but Ruth and several other women blocked his path. "Mom," his voice cracked, "what are you doing? What I should have done 3 decades ago." She pulled out a weathered notebook. "This is dated June 15th, 1993, the day your father destroyed my manuscripts, or so he thought." Robert tried to leave, but found himself surrounded by writing club members. Serenity smiled sweetly. Phone recording everything. Margaret began reading. "Today my husband showed me who he really is. He burned my words, but he forgot. A writer's strongest stories are the ones we carry inside." Gregory stopped struggling. I watched his face as his mother's words washed over him, saw the moment recognition hit. These were the same things he'd done to me. "Sound familiar?" I asked, stepping up beside Margaret. "Like father, like son." "This is ridiculous," Robert sputtered. "Margaret, you're making a scene." "No," Victoria interrupted. "She's making history, just like your son's wife did when she refused to be silenced." I opened my own book. "Should we show them what that looks like?" The crowd cheered again. Gregory sank into a chair, his father still standing rigid beside him. "This is from chapter 12, I began. The part where Sarah discovers her husband's betrayal. isn't just about the manuscripts. It's about trying to own her voice, her dreams, her very existence. As I read, I watched Gregory's face, watched him recognize his own actions in the story, saw him flinch at particularly familiar passages. His father tried to leave twice more, but the crowd had become a wall. "You can't leave yet," Natasha told them. "The best part's coming." I continued reading. But what Thomas never understood was that burning paper doesn't destroy stories. It sets them free. Like phoenix flames, they rise again, stronger, fiercer, impossible to contain. Margaret picked up her own story again, our voices intertwining across generations. And when women rise together, no force on earth can stop them. Gregory stood suddenly. "I want to speak." "No," I said firmly. "You've spoken enough. For years, you spoke over me, spoke for me, tried to silence me. Now it's my turn." "Please," he whispered. "I need to say something." Victoria stepped forward. "Let him speak. Let everyone hear what he has to say." Gregory walked to the podium, faced the hostile crowd. I became everything I hated, everything I swore I'd never be. "Like father, like son," his mother repeated softly. "No," Gregory's voice strengthened. "Not anymore. Dad, I'm done. Done being your echo. Done repeating your mistakes. Ingrid," he turned to me. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix it," I said. "I know, nothing fixes it. But maybe—" He pulled out a folder. "Maybe this helps. It's everything. The emails, the plans to discredit you, all of it. Use it. Show everyone what happens when men try to silence women's voices." Robert lunged forward. "You weak, pathetic—" "That's enough," Cole's voice cut through the chaos. "Security, please escort Mr. Wallace Sr. out." As Robert was led away, still shouting, Gregory handed me the folder. "There's something else you should know. Mum's manuscripts. Dad didn't burn all of them. He sold some, made money from them." Margaret gasped. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "We can prove this. It's all in there. Bank records, everything." I handed the folder to Cole, who immediately started making calls. The crowd buzzed with excitement, phones recording everything. "This doesn't make things right between us," I told Gregory. "I know." He looked at his mother. "But maybe it's a start, for both generations." Margaret touched his arm, the first contact between them in decades. "It's a start." I returned to the podium, faced my audience, my army of writers and supporters. "Now, shall we finish this story?" "Yes," Victoria smiled. "But first, I think we need to start a new one, about a woman whose words were stolen, and how 30 years later, justice finally came in the form of her daughter-in-law's revolution." The crowd roared its approval. In the back, Gregory slipped out quietly, leaving behind his father's legacy of silence. And in its place, women's voices rose, strong and clear and unstoppable. The stage lights felt warm on my face as I stood at the podium, accepting the Literary Achievement Award. In the audience, I could see our writing group, now over 100 strong, beaming with pride. Victoria sat in the front row beside Margaret, both of them nodding encouragement. "This award," I began, "isn't just for my novel. It's for every woman who's been told to be quiet, to know her place, to stop dreaming." Movement at the back of the hall caught my eye. Gregory slipped in, thinner now, wearing a suit that looked too big for him. He hadn't tried to contact me since the bookstore confrontation, though I'd heard from Marley that he'd started therapy. When my husband destroyed my first manuscript, he thought he was ending my story. Instead, he gave me the first line of a better one. The audience laughed. I spotted Robert in the crowd too, summoned by the court to witness this moment. Part of the settlement required him to attend every major event related to his ex-wife's recovered works. But the real story isn't about destruction. It's about what we build from the ashes. Margaret, would you join me? Gregory's mother walked to the podium, her recovered manuscripts now published and climbing bestseller lists. Robert shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Together, Margaret said into the microphone. "We're announcing the Phoenix Fund for Silenced Voices. Every dollar Robert earned from stealing my work, plus the proceeds from Gregory's sold house, will go to supporting women writers who've faced similar obstacles." The crowd erupted. Robert stood to leave, but security blocked his path. The court order was clear. He had to stay until the end. "Natasha," I called out, "you were our first grant recipient. Want to share your news?" Natasha bounced to the stage, purple hair now streaked with silver. "My poetry collection hit the bestseller list this morning." More cheers. I saw Gregory smile slightly, then catch himself. "Ruth," I continued, "tell them about the writing workshops in domestic violence shelters." Ruth stood, proud and fierce. "We've opened programs in 12 shelters across 3 states. Women are finding their voices every day. Maria just signed a 3-book deal." She waved her contract high. "You see," I turned back to the audience. "One man tried to silence one woman. Instead, he awakened hundreds of voices. And we're just getting started." Victoria stepped up beside me. "Tell them about the film adaptation." "Oh yes," I smiled. "Hollywood's making a movie about our story. But here's the twist. We insisted on complete creative control. No male directors trying to soften our edges. No studios trying to make it more palatable." Robert finally managed to push past security, storming toward the exit. Before he reached it, Margaret spoke again. "Running away again, Robert? Like you ran when the truth came out? When the royalty checks you stole were traced?" He froze. "But you can't run from karma," she continued. "You tried to bury my voice under shame and fear. Now my words are required reading in universities. Our daughter-in-law made sure of that." Gregory stood up. "Dad, sit down. For once in your life, listen to the women speaking." The hall went silent. Robert turned, face red. "You dare." "Yes," Gregory said, "I dare. Because I learned what you never did. Trying to silence someone only makes their truth louder." I picked up my award, its weight solid and real in my hands. This is for every woman who's been told to be quiet, for every manuscript burned, deleted, or hidden away, for every dream someone tried to smother. "And for every voice yet to come," Margaret added. "The Phoenix Fund's first year is fully funded," I announced. 20 women will receive grants, mentorship, and publishing support. 20 stories that might have been lost will instead take flight. Victoria stood. "Make that 40. My publishing house will match every grant." More cheers. Robert finally slumped into a chair, defeated. Gregory caught my eye, nodded once, not asking for forgiveness but acknowledging the justice of it all. "So what's next?" someone called out. "Everything," I replied. "We're building writing groups in prisons, in homeless shelters, in refugee centers. Wherever women's voices have been silenced, we'll help them speak. Because paper burns," Margaret said. "But stories rise," I finished. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. Through my tears, I saw Gregory leave quietly, head bowed. Robert sat alone, surrounded by the triumph of the women he'd tried to silence. And in the front row, our writing group held hands, their faces shining with pride and possibility. I looked at my award one last time, then handed it to Margaret. "I think this belongs to both of us." She hugged me tight, whispering, "No, dear, it belongs to all of us." And in that moment, surrounded by strong voices and stronger women, I knew we'd written an ending that was really just a beginning.